Welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, DJ Marcotte and John Soroyce. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, here lies the Shotgun Samurai in our league of record. John Soroyce has missed the playoffs, and he will be missed. But he's here for the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast,
and that's
today.
what counts.
Luckily, he survived altogether. And we are the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast, the one and only working class podcast. We are the Blue Collar Ballers, John and DJ. Check us out on our Facebook page at Armchair Fantasy Football. On Twitter, at Armchair FF Pod. I'm on Twitter at Armchair Kingpin. John is on Twitter at John2977. And as usual, you can email us at armchairfb@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Podbean. And of course, our videos on YouTube. Just search Armchair Fantasy Football, and you will find us. I'm a little rusty today, John. It feels like we haven't been here in a while. We had Thanksgiving.
Yep.
We had
a nor'easter.
We have Snowmageddon, as I have dubbed it, and we're trying to get through that. But we are back. We are alive. We are not buried in snow up here in the great white north of Maine. We're back. And John, you missed the playoffs, but you're having success in a couple other leagues, right?
Yeah, our tag league where we're partners in, we are the second seed in that. So that's good news there.
Which doesn't mean much because, well, I guess it means something because we get to play a lesser opponent week one.
Yeah, we're 11-2 in that league. We finished.
That's good.
And then
and we lost 2 games to the same guy, so we only lost to one team.
Yeah. So that's good for us.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
And then in the dynasty league, had an awful week. My players just didn't perform, but
and thank you for letting me increase my roto lead in that league.
Of all weeks, I needed to score
Appreciate
points. Lamar Jackson actually saved me from being worse. But
I had a down week in that league too. I only had 125 or so.
Yeah, dynasty. The good thing going for me was Carson. Carson had an okay game. Actually, I shouldn't say okay game. He had a good game, but Jake, who was tied with me for the division, with the same record, needed to beat me in points, and I ended up winning the division by 6 points.
You did, so you have a bye in that league,
yes.
And I have a bye in that league.
So you are the first seed, I am the number 2 seed in that.
Of course, that's how it always goes. I'm the first seed on the podcast, you're the second seed on the podcast. So goes in fantasy football.
What's funny about the Dynasty Championship,
they're
league,
right here, by the way.
Yeah, we're the champions from last year. He's the Roto champion. I'm the bracket champion.
I plan on sliding this old girl right to
I
the
got to
side
defend
of the
this
table.
puppy, so I have a bye week to think about it. So
we'll see how it shakes out. So the fantasy regular season's over, John. Is that not incredibly hard to believe?
It went by quick.
Went by quicker than most years. I'm just going to come out and say it. This wasn't a favorite year of mine. This is actually the 10th year for our league of record. And that league was just tumultuous for me because it seemed like whenever I won handily, I was not available to enjoy it in one way, shape, or form. This was a very stressful year in that league. And then, of course, in the tag, the tag team league, we expanded the league, and that seemed like a bad idea from a personality standpoint in a few areas there. Of course, the Dynasty League just does what the Dynasty League does. It's the quiet kid in the corner that just does what it's supposed to and doesn't really raise its hand and doesn't stand out. It's just there and does a good job. That's our Dynasty League. So, yeah. Caden, I guess, are you that kid?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there we go. You are when you're here, at least. Yeah. So, you ready to get into some news, John?
Yeah, we'll start off with news. John Ross for the Bengals activated off IR for Week 14 against the Browns. And Zach Taylor said he will have a role against the Browns this week.
As he should. As I called it, the resurgence of Andy Dalton really rose the tide of Tyler Boyd. And I think if you guys remember, if we go into the Wayback Machine, you'll recall that John Ross was very, very hot to start the season. We actually have Mr. Ross in our tag team league, so I'm interested to see. I don't know if I'm comfortable starting him this weekend, but he could be an asset to us.
I'm wondering if he's a decoy this week is what I worry about, being activated right off. But wait and see. But it's great news for – it should help Boyd too.
Yeah.
It should. So if you're a Boyd owner, it should help out.
Yeah, that'll only help Boyd.
If you're an Auden Tate owner, then you may want to stash him in the corner because I think he's just going to trend downwards with Ross returning.
But if you have Ross and you stashed him on IR, if you have the luxury of having that spot in your leagues, he's like a number one waiver wire pickup that you probably had to spend at least $50 on that you get for free. He's a bonus.
Yeah.
Coming off
And
IR.
a lot of people either, if they didn't have an IR, dumped him.
Yeah.
So I mean,
he could be on the wire. If so, I would definitely go get there and get him. And you probably should have beat the waiver wire and went after him last week, just because you knew he was
2 weeks
coming
ahead.
back.
Yeah, you knew he was going to come back for week 14 probably, or hope.
But if he's out there, I'd put at this point, John, I'd put all your fab money on him. It's so late in the game and you're in the playoff.
Well, it's do or die. It's either you advance. If you're on
either him or Alexander.
If you're on a bye week, I mean, your next round, it's do or die. So at this point, you spend all your fab money to build the best team.
You put all your chips to the center of the table for John Ross.
Yeah. Now other news: Juju and James Conner. I apologize.
Excuse me if I may interrupt. His name is actually Screwju Smith-Schuster.
Okay, Screwju.
Get that correct.
Smith-Schuster and James Conner, both questionable for this week's game against the Cardinals.
I still think they're putting Conner on IR eventually, man.
Neither one has trended towards being optimistic they're playing, but remember they have flipped their record in their division, and they're in the playoff hunt. So remember, guys, this could be the last week. Juju and James Conner have a good chance of sitting this week, but I don't think they sit for long with the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? The horizon.
Honestly, bro, they're in the playoff hunt. That's great. It's like a tree falling in the woods. Nobody cares. And if they even get into the playoffs, they're not getting past the first round.
It's been their defense that's saved them more than their offense.
Oh, yeah, their defense is elite. You got to give credit to their coaching staff as well, John. I mean, I don't see how Mike Tomlin is not a candidate for Coach of the Year this year. He's been handed a bag of garbage and, turned it into a bag of money. But again, the offense is just not good enough to progress them further than the first round if they were to get into the playoffs. That's my opinion. But, yeah, all the credit in the world to the defense over there, to Mike Tomlin. And from a fantasy standpoint, these guys are mostly worthless to you, especially in the playoffs.
Other news, Ronald Jones was benched for poor pass protection. So we go from Peyton Barber to Ronald Jones, back to Peyton Barber. A lot of people started Ronald Jones this week, last week, based on the fact.
You can cut both of them. Cut both of them. Do not tempt yourself in the playoffs to start either of these guys. That is fool's gold right there. That is running a fool's errand, as they say, John, to start either of those clowns. Just cut them.
Dalvin Cook, who was injured last night, shoulder, said he's definitely ready. Be ready to play.
Should be ready.
This week against the Lions in Week 14. If you are a Cook owner, or you are not optimistic that Cook is going to start, you go out there and you spend your fab money on Alexander Madison.
Yes, he's the other guy that I would go all in on fab wise. Put your first claim in for Ross. You may even put your first claim in for Madison. John and I made a really rare overthink the situation error this weekend. We actually cut Madison on Sunday and added Andy Isabella because, of course, Adam Thielen was out again, which really irritates me. But be that as it may, we knew Andy Isabella had upside to catch a big bomb or, make a big play. And I said to John, why are we starting Madison? Like, what are we going to... There's no upside there. Well, we didn't know, obviously, Cook was going to get hurt. And then John cut Madison, which I saw, and I said, that's probably not the guy I would have cut. At the same time, John, I'm not sure what your options were there. We may not have had any options.
It was not.
So, be that as it may, we made a huge bonehead move this week, both of us. and we'll try to go get him. Luckily, he's not a guy we have to have, but Kamara's got a tough matchup this week if we could have started Madison. But I guess it's irrelevant since Dalvin Cook claims he's going to play. But like I said last week, guys, the player always thinks they're going to play. That and a dime ain't going to buy you a cup of coffee. If the coaching staff doesn't think he's ready, he's not going to play. But we'll see how it goes.
So with this news just popped in. So Darrell Williams and Damian Williams are both questionable play this week. LaShawn McCoy basically ran the ball. They were talking about Darwin Thompson possibly being involved this week, but the Chiefs just went out and signed Spencer Ware.
Interesting ad.
Yep. He knows the system.
He
knows the system.
So it's probably I don't know if you agree, but that's probably just a depth ad based on how injured they are. Darwin Thompson is a guy a lot of us looked at as a sleeper in the offseason and hasn't really got the opportunity. He's an interesting guy there. I don't think Ware's going to be any legitimacy in fantasy. That's my opinion. I think he's just a depth ad. I don't know what you think.
He got cut for a reason. So he's basically just depth at this point. That just tells me that Darrell Williams or Damian Williams probably will not play this week is what that tells me.
That's what that tells me.
Yep. And it's insurance for this week for them to heal up.
McCoy's probably the guy to own there, but it's sad to say that you're fading every player at a certain position on the Chiefs, but I mean they're just using every warm body
they do have a tough matchup this week against a decent D. I'm not going to say elite D anymore. They play the Patriots.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think that New England has really struggled against elite passers, such as Deshaun Watson.
We'll go into that more.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Mari Cooper practiced in full on Monday, so it looks like he's starting to heal up good. So that's a good trend that he's practicing on a Monday, too. I know they did have a game on Thanksgiving, so they're practicing, well, obviously they have more time to rest.
That team looks bad.
TJ Hawkinson has been sent to IR for his ankle, so his season is done.
Yep.
He didn't look great anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, move on. Gardner Minshew. Minshew Mania's back. He has been named the Week 14 starter.
Yeah, so funny story on this. I was just telling John, in our league of record, I have Aaron Rodgers, and I thank you, Aaron, for the great week you had. You won me my week, but I don't trust you at all, as far as I can throw you, as a matter of fact. So I went and I picked up Andy Dalton, who has a couple of good matchups in the playoffs, as well as I also got Foles and Minshew, because I had a feeling Foles was getting bent. So I added a little insurance there and got Minshew as well, because they have an excellent schedule.
He came down and performed, but we'll go into that more when we can do the game breakdowns.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones or Dr. Jones is dealing with a twisted ankle, but sounds like he should be okay to play though.
He sucks.
Baker Mayfield is not expected to miss time for his hand injury. At first, they initially thought he'd come out of the game, sent to the locker room, but was back for the second half. He had slammed this same injury Drew Brees basically got, but without the extent of the, the seriousness. But he should be fine.
He sucks. But he does have a pretty good playoff schedule.
Austin Hooper to resume practicing this week. So he may have a chance to play this week.
Yeah, and for Hooper owners, that would be a huge upgrade in addition to their playoff roster. And if he doesn't play this week, I'm pretty certain he'll play the following week. Just a hunch.
And other late-breaking news, Kalen Ballage has been sent to IR with a leg injury. Kalen Ballage, yards per carry, 1.8.
Guy to own there is Laird. Had another good week after kind of a disappointment week the week before. I got to imagine he's the guy that they're going to
this leaves, with Ballage out, Drake getting traded, this leaves Zach Center, who they just signed,
he's a nobody.
Patrick Laird, and Myles Gaskin to compete for the backfield, but my thoughts tell me Laird should be the lead back.
I mean, he shined.
He did shine.
So why wouldn't they?
I agree.
Other than the fact they're the Dolphins.
That's it for news.
Cool. Oh, no, you're missing kind of a big one.
Oh, actually, Ron Rivera for the Carolina Panthers has been fired.
He gone.
And the interim coach, I just had it a second ago.
John, you're supposed to be working on your polish.
Perry.
Doesn't really matter.
Perry Fuel will take over as the
matter.
interim head coach.
He's been around a little while. But the moral of the story is, I'm kind of surprised by this. And I'm not necessarily surprised that they let Rivera go, but I feel like the years of service earned him off-season execution rather than a in-season execution. So what that tells me, John, is they might have some interest in a college coach or two, where that season is coming to an end right now. But who really knows? I know Rivera made it to a Super Bowl, so I'd take him in Dallas all day long. I'd kick Garrett out for him in a second. But again, I think it's one of those situations, John, where sometimes coaches just, their voice isn't heard anymore, and I think that's the case there in Carolina. I think Ron Rivera is a good head coach, and he will definitely end up somewhere soon, maybe as early as this year, maybe in New York, maybe in Dallas, maybe in maybe in Cleveland. Who knows?
Yeah, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's an opportunity, maybe. I think this Black Monday, John, this year's Black Monday is probably going to be the most brutal of all of the Black Mondays. There's a lot of bad teams. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks, John, and there's a lot of bad coaching going on in the NFL. And I think it's time to give some new blood some opportunities. But Ron Rivera is not one of those guys. He's a good head coach. I just think his voice isn't heard anymore there. It's a real talented team, and I think they expect more right now, and they're not getting it. And I don't blame them. But at the same time, Rivera's a good coach, right? What does this do from a fantasy standpoint?
Nothing.
You don't think so?
No, I think the team will move on. Remember, Norv Turner is their offense coordinator.
Right.
So it shouldn't affect the offense at all.
Yeah.
It could slightly affect the defense, but this defense is getting torn up right now.
But it's talented, and they're good in some aspects of the game, but they're just, again, they're not getting what they need out of the players right now. Rivera's voice had not been heard for a while, I think, and by the players, and I was just surprised this is not an off-season.
That's what shocked me, that it happened in season.
Yeah, this one kind of blew me away.
So we are going to go into game breakdowns over the weekend. So we will start with the Thanksgiving Day games. The Chicago Bears played the Detroit Lions and win 24-20. Bears improved 6-6. Lions are now eliminated themselves from playoff contention. They dropped to 3-8-1. So let's start on the Chicago side. Mitch Trubisky was 29 of 38 for 338 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Actually, one of his better games this season.
But why? Tell me why. You know why.
Detroit Lions aren't good.
Their defense is trash. Mitch Trubisky is trash. And I don't care if he had 3 touchdowns. I don't care if he threw for 338. Nobody was starting him because he's just a volatile explosion waiting to happen, or not a good explosion. And I'm not going to waste any more of my breath on Mitch Trubisky.
Montgomery, Monty Burns, 16 carries for 75 yards and 2 catches for 12 yards and a TD. So he saved his day with that TD. Overall, not too bad of a day. 16 points from him, but still.
I expect it. Game script here, John. I don't know if you agree. 16 carries, I expect more in a game script.
I expect
like
21-22 is what I expect from him. But Cohen's still being involved there.
As he should. I mean, he's a great player.
Yeah, it's about a 70-30 split there right now, I'd say.
You made the comment, saved his day. Montgomery needs to start saving his position on that team. But he was pretty efficient here. And he looked good. It's just a little disappointing not to see the carries. And to your point, Tariq Cohen only had 3 carries. You know what I mean? So it's like, I would have expected more there. And of course, Cohen did have 4 catches for 26 yards, which isn't a great stat line by any means. And Montgomery's 2 for 12 with the touchdown. I mean, good day overall for you in the fantasy box score, but I want to see more from Montgomery. Maybe we will in year 2, but I don't think so in year 1.
Speaking of more, was Miller time in Detroit, because Anthony Miller finally broke out. We've been waiting for this game. He had 13 targets, 9 receptions for 140 yards. This is the game we've been waiting for Anthony Miller for a while. I would just like to see a consistency line, but seeing the stat line was amazing from him.
Well, here's the problem, John. I've been touting Miller as a talent for a long time. He's on my dynasty team. I'm happy that he's on my dynasty team because I know Trubisky's gone soon. Problem is, unless you're playing a really inferior defense like Detroit, Mitch can't support more than one receiver. And it's always going to be, Allen Robinson is always going to be the first guy that's going to get that good workload. Here he actually supported 3 of them if you want to count Javon Wims, which I don't want to count him.
No, he's not a consistent starter. But
yeah, Miller. And then, of course, Robinson with 8 for 86 and a touchdown. But this is once in a great while. This is once in a blue moon, and they're not playing Detroit every week, right, John?
Nope. Speaking of Detroit, we'll go on that side. So rookie David, I shouldn't say rookie, but he started his first career game. David Blau.
Wow.
If you watch this game, because I watched it on Thanksgiving, and I just watched that first pass to Galladay, my eyes were like, wow. He looked good against the Chicago D. I know his numbers
Wait. First pass to who?
Galladay.
Who?
Galladay.
There we go. Yeah, Kenny Galladay, man. Oh wait, I still got taps going too, so it's like a
Guess who didn't start Kenny Galladay this week? I actually played Marvin Jones instead, and I got burnt by that. Not horribly, but
yeah.
Galladay had the bigger day. So
you gotta have love for Marvin.
Blau starting his first game, 22 of 38 for 280 yards, 2 TDs, and a late interception in the game.
You were fading Marvitron, and I'm like, dude, you don't not start Marvitron this year. He's been the steadiest guy on the team,
Yep,
and he got 3 catches for 40 yards and a touch. So,
and then Galladay had 5 targets,
a little bit
4
more.
receptions for 158 yards and a TD, but that 75-yard TD bomb
did
at the
you
beginning.
bench Galladay?
Yeah.
This is why you're not in the playoffs, because you have made some boneheaded start sits, and I get why you're making them with educated guesses, and you're making decisions based on the right reasons, but sometimes you just got to start your studs, bro.
And in that case, I should have, because I believe, who are the 2 I started over him? Russell Gage and...
He had an okay game.
He had 16 points. Who was the other one? There was one I started, but still it cost me.
Kenny Galladay. You would have been singing that song all the way to the playoffs this week, potentially.
I wouldn't have made the playoffs. I would have missed by
whatever.
points.
Think
But I would have had a better
positive.
record.
Yeah.
But we'll move on.
Looked better.
Yeah, other than that, the stats, Bo Scarborough, 21 of 83, but he's irrelevant when it comes to the passing game. He had 0 targets. Other than that, that's about it from the Detroit side. So we're going to move. Blau, David Blau. He actually looked good. I don't think...
Well, he did in the first half. Not so much in the second half.
Still impressed for his first outing.
Not bad for a nobody.
Exactly.
The guy that you probably had a beer next to at your local dive bar a couple days ago.
So next game we're gonna go into is the Buffalo Bills beat the Dallas Cowboys.
9-3. You were saying it, 9-3, bro.
Yep.
This is a good team, and Scott helped me out. Head coach Buffalo, Scott something or other.
Oh, it's gonna
Yeah.
bug.
Well, anyway, his name's Scott. He's a real good head coach.
Oh, McDermott. Doug
McDermott.
Doug
It's Scott McDermott.
Why am I thinking Doug then?
I don't know. But anyway, he good. And another guy that should be in consideration for Coach of the Year. You look at that offense, John. I mean, obviously their defense is what steadies them. That is their anchor. But with that offense, Josh Allen's an okay quarterback with great legs. And John Brown's the only receiver, I think, that's even good to great, let alone elite. I don't think he's elite. Devin Singletary, I think, is a very talented rookie with a bright future, but they don't have any studs on offense. And they beat down the lowly Jason Garretts, the Dallas Jason Garretts.
I will
that's what
say
I'm calling them moving forward.
Buffalo's defense that game was just making things happen.
Every game.
Yeah, they're just the way that drive started. You see Buffalo. They didn't start off with anything spectacular.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I get mad when I look at 12 carries for Ezekiel Elliott. What the hell is wrong with these people? Like, they realize they're managing a football team with the intended purpose of winning games, right? It just blows me away, dude.
I do like
12 carries.
I do like Elliott's. This is the way he should see his targets.
10 targets.
10 targets, 7 receptions, 66 yards.
So he was involved, but I don't know.
I know what you're saying. This is a guy who's supposed to be your workhorse, and he's only getting 12 carries. I know exactly what you're saying.
And I love Tony Pollard and what he brings to the table, but he shouldn't be getting any carries. Not even.
I mean, he should have had 12.
Not even 3.
He should have 12 more than 12 carries by the half.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude.
You know what I'm saying?
It's just ridiculous.
They were winning until the.
And when you watch the beginning of the game, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, John, but I get excited about Ezekiel Elliott, who at the end of the day gave you a great fantasy box score. But you watch the first few plays of the game, and he's just like blowing over these guys.
Oh no, he's getting like 6-7 yards to carry, 8 yards to carry.
Why do you?
He's opening out in the flats and
Dude, I have lost so much respect for the Dallas Jason Garretts that Ezekiel Elliott 12 for 71 on the ground, through the air. Ezekiel Elliott 7 for 66, Amari Cooper 8 for 85 on 11 targets, Michael Gallup 3 for 63 on 6 targets, Jason Witten 6 for 42 and a touchdown. and some guy named Vental Bryant caught a touchdown, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. And we're moving on to the better, classier, harder working team, the Buffalo Bills. Then we're not talking about Dallas. We're talking about Buffalo.
Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, 19 of 24 for 231 and a TD.
Meh.
He also ran 10 carries for 43 yards and a TD. So
that's what he gives you, right? He gives you that Konami code that gives you that baseline.
And he actually almost outran, attempts-wise, Singletary. Singletary had 14 carries for 63 yards.
Frank Gore, 9 carries.
Yep, he's still around.
But that's not going to work in the playoffs. They will not last long in the playoffs with that strategy. I'm telling you now.
But Singletary was also helped him out. Was his 4 targets, 3 receptions, 38 yards, and a TD. We said it on the last podcast before Thanksgiving that be careful of the Cole Beasley.
Who did I call? Cole Beasley
narrative,
man.
The revenge narrative.
Hashtag revenge game.
6 catches, 110 yards, and a TD.
But I put more thought behind just the hashtag revenge game, but the fact that Dallas struggles with the underneath, quick, speedy Julian Edelman type of guys, and that's exactly the mold that Cole Beasley fits. He was tailor-made to beat up on the Cowboys, death by paper cut style. And, of course, Singletary does get good usage, John, there, but not as much as I would like to see. John Brown, not so great, though, only 3 for 26.
No, but that passing touchdown saved them.
Yeah. And this was a game I think they were actively targeting Cole Beasley, so don't get too excited about that. Cole Beasley's still only a desperation start. And I don't even know if he's that in the playoffs, John.
Yeah, last game we'll go into for Thanksgiving was the New Orleans Saints beat the Atlanta Falcons. Saints improved 10-2. Falcons dropped to 3-9, eliminated from the playoffs. Saints win this game 26-18.
So, not a turkey guy. So I didn't eat turkey. But there must have been some tryptophan in the mac and cheese and green bean casserole and stuffing that I mounded my plate with because I fell asleep here and Julio Jones was in my lineup because the Atlanta Falcons are terrible people, horrible people. Why wouldn't you just rule the guy out? A freaking game time decision on an evening game on Thanksgiving is what horrible people do. And he was ruled out and I was asleep. That was a bummer, but I still won.
And I tried to warn him because as soon
as
I found out the news, I texted him and I'm like looking at my phone. I'm like, he must have passed out.
Yeah, he's like, he gone.
I'm like, I can't say I didn't try to help him.
But I still won and beat the guy with by far the most points in the league.
You beat the number one team.
That's just fantasy football sometimes.
So on the Atlanta Falcons side, without Julio, Matt Ryan, 35 of 50 for 312 yards, 2 TDs.
That's what we like to see.
2 interceptions.
Not so much there.
Yep. Devontae Freeman,
don't forget Matt Ryan also got put 21 yards on the ground too on 3 carries, so he was showing some mobility there as well.
Excuse me, Devontae Freeman, 17 carries for 51 yards, awful. But Freeman had 4 catches for 13 yards, still awful.
Also awful.
But with the game saver in this game was Calvin Ridley without Julio, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 91 yards. I was impressed by that, and then Blake. This Christian Blake.
You got me.
he started with Julio out. He was actually catching the ball quite a bit the first half. He had 9 targets, 6 catches for 57 yards.
And when Julio's back in there, he'll go back to being irrelevant.
Russell Gage, 9 targets, 5 receptions, 52 yards, and a TD. And then
let's not forget New Orleans secondary isn't that good. So this was supposed to be a good day for Matt Ryan, but he hasn't always come through on those. But the way I look at it, John, other than Ridley and Russell Gage, because nobody ever started Blake, Matt Ryan, those 3 guys are really the only fantasy relevant guys. I guess Jaden Graham, but nobody was starting him either.
No, everybody, when they see Jay Graham, they think Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, really. It ain't him.
On the other
what's going on with Alvin Kamara, John? This was supposed to be the multi-touchdown game. This is what we predicted, and he's still just fine. So tell me what's going on with Alvin Kamara.
The only thing I can think is teams have started to figure him out. I'm not saying completely.
You don't figure out Alvin Kamara. He's just really fast, and you can't catch him. This is the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know. He only got 11 carries. He got 8 targets through the air, 4 for 23. Just not a great game. I mean, he got you like 10, 12 points, but the explosion's coming, right?
It has to. The drought has to end. What is this, 7 games now without TD?
It's
Or 6, I believe.
It's a ridiculous number. Problem is he's got 49ers next week. So we as a team hope it's coming, but a little nervous.
No, I'm not nervous of that, and I'll tell you why.
A little nervous.
A lot of people were nervous about Lamar Jackson. I know it's Lamar Jackson, but first of all, the 49ers, look up this stat if you don't believe me. In the last 8 games before this week, they have 6 out of those last 8 games, they've given up 100 yards of rushing. So they're starting to get gashed on the ground.
A little nervous, man.
I'm not. They're starting to get gashed by running backs or running quarterbacks, and it's starting to show. Remember, Kenyon Drake got him for 100 yards. So, I mean, that's the thing. Look up the stats. Their run defense is not as good as it was.
His performance was only slightly better than Devonta Freeman's, bro.
I know.
And it was Atlanta. Devonta Freeman went against one of the best run Ds in the league. Atlanta is not good at anything.
But I'm hoping that this was the game.
I hope so.
He was bad, and now he comes back with an explosion game. But we'll go into this.
I'm a little nervous.
The star of this game.
Jared Cook.
No.
No?
Taysom Hill.
Well, yeah, he was. Didn't he get like the Turkey Award or something like that?
Yeah, so basically, Taysom Hill shocked everybody. He started off the game, blocked the punt. They got into the red zone because of it. But Taysom Hill had 2 attempts for 33 yards and a TD. And then on top of that, he had 2 catches for 12 yards and a TD and a blocked punt.
He had a 39.6 quarterback rating, though, John. I mean, come on.
He's a quarterback who can play anything, basically.
He's a fun guy that you're never going to start in fantasy.
No, because you don't know which week they're going to use him. That's the hard part.
Latavius Murray, he good. 4 carries for 2 yards. Running at a good old 0.5 yards per clip. Yeah, he's irrelevant at this point.
And Michael Thomas.
We thought he was going to score like 8,000 points in this game. He did okay. 8 targets, 6 catches, 48 yards. He got you double digits, but not what you expect from Michael Thomas.
No, but I believe if I'm looking
Which means he'll go off next week, right?
He's just going off, period, if you don't count this game.
Yeah.
I mean, people, you can say he had a bad game, but
Sorry. I'm just getting excited because last week you're like, Michael Thomas, the greatest receiver of all time. And the second you were like really pumping his tires up, he went out there and completely embarrassed you with a lousy 10-point
Well, I'm still going to pump him up because
against the Falcons.
He has played. We just finished week 13, guys. He has 4 games. He has 4 games left. His stats with 4 games left: 110 receptions, 1,290 yards, and 6 TDs.
He good, but we can't play the Humpty Dance this week because he wasn't good.
No, he wasn't good this week, but he's gonna get. He possibly could break the single season reception record.
He very well may.
He has 132 targets already.
That's good.
That's very good.
You got to give some credit to Jared Cook, though. 3 catches for 85 yards. The guy's been a really relevant tight end. I didn't think it was going to happen in New Orleans, but lately he's been a pretty steady guy.
Yeah. They don't usually use the tight end there, but they have been.
He's better with Breeze, for sure, but he's been steady for you.
So that's it for the Thanksgiving Day games. We'll go on to the Sunday games.
Are you waiver wiring Christian Blake or Jaden Graham?
No.
Me neither.
Blake, if Julio was out, but I don't think he'll be out again.
Right, yeah.
Unless they kind of shut him down for the year, but that's not Julio.
I will punch you in the face if you suggest that again.
I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying because they're out of playoff contention. So we will go on to the next game. There was some...
and that's a shoot.
There was some... I guess what's the word I want to say? Upsets this week or...
Whoa. Are you talking about the game I think you're talking about? Are you talking about the Bengals and the Jets?
No.
Okay, good. Because that wasn't an upset. Because I told the world, John, that the Bengals were winning.
You did. Game. No, I'm talking about other games that will just shock you with scores this week that you wouldn't think the people that won. So first game we'll go into is the Miami Dolphins beat the Philadelphia Eagles to 30.
Can you do a dolphin noise?
I can't.
Okay.
Somebody just asked me that the other day too.
Oh, really? See, that's not bad.
That's not bad.
That was better than mine.
Dolphins improved to 3-9. Eagles dropped to 5-7. Eagles need to win out if they want to stand a chance. They're just such a
trash team. Carson Wentz, I told you to start him, and he did what I told you he'd do. He had a great game against the Miami Dolphins. So that's good, but man, this team's trash.
Biggest thing that impressed me for this game was Miles Sanders was finally used like Miles Sanders.
I told you that was I was right about this game by and large, but it wasn't hard because they were playing the Dolphins. So don't think that I'm patting myself on the back here. But To put it into numbers perspective, Carson Wentz 310 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, but a huge game there for Wentz. Miles Sanders 17 carries. Still would like to see a little bit more carries there, but Jay Ajayi only had 2, and it was really the Miles Sanders show on the ground. He turned those 17 carries into 83 yards at 4.9 yards per clip, which is excellent. And, of course, got some obligatory work through the air, 5 catches for 22 yards, and that's where he added the touchdown, John. Excellent game for Miles Sanders. I didn't start him, and I don't think I started him in Dynasty, but he had a great game and a great matchup, so he should have. Outside of him, Alshon Jeffrey's back. 9 catches for 137 yards and a touchdown. And Dallas Goedert, dude, 6 for 66. 666, that's the number of the beast for Zach Ertz, because he only had 3 for 24.
I don't think he was 100%. I think he was used more as a decoy in this game.
Or Dallas Goedert is just that good. And he is. The funny story about Philly, they jumped the Cowboys in the draft just to get Dallas Goedert, just so Dallas wouldn't get him. And now they're starting to use him because they're like, oh, wow, we just did that out of spite, but he's actually really good. Let's use him. And I have him in Dynasty as well, and he's excellent, man. He's just as good as Ertz. He might even be a better talent than Ertz. But the moral of the story here, guys, is Alshon Jeffrey's back. Dallas Goedert's out there. Zach Ertz is out there. Nelson Aguilar's back. So that means Carson Wentz has his full assembly of weapons. And that plus the Miami Dolphins is why you saw what you saw this weekend. They were all great starts, and you should have started all of them.
On the Miami side, Ryan Fitzmagic made magic happen. 27 of 39, 365 yards, 3 TDs, and 1 interception. So he had a great game.
Once again, a great matchup.
Yeah, ground game.
Who's Matt Hack?
The punter.
Matt Hack threw a pass.
I believe that was the punter.
And a touchdown. He threw a touchdown.
Yeah, it was trick play.
Why is it Hack?
Hack. He's the punter.
Yeah, so he got a touchdown.
Yep.
Did you start him?
No. I probably should have. Yeah, so ground game wise for the Miami Dolphins.
Interesting game here for the rushing.
Yeah. Laird had the bulk of the carries. Had 10 carries for 5 yards and a TD. But
that's bad.
Yes.
Bad.
He had 5 targets, 4 receptions for 43 yards. So he still managed to put you up 14 fantasy points.
But this is a good run defense, John. The Philadelphia Eagles are good against the run. So, I mean, Patrick Laird's going to have to do better than 0.5 yards per carry if he wants that job.
Myles Gaskin had 2 attempts for 20 yards, no TDs. He also had 1 catch for 6 yards. But the big winner of the day, winner, chicken dinner, Devontae Parker. 10 targets, 7 receptions, 159 yards, and 2 TDs. Devontae Parker has been the star of the team.
He's this year's fantasy MVP.
He's done great.
If you drafted Devontae Parker or undrafted him, a lot of leagues he was undrafted because people completely lost faith in him. He's the fantasy MVP this year. And Mike Gesicki's pretty good too, 5 for 79 and a touchdown. He's been pretty reliable as of late. But Devontae Parker, how do you not start? Like, you know my roster in the Dynasty League, John. It ain't nothing but studs, literally.
And you didn't start
My
Parker.
worst starter is Saquon Barkley. I might have to start putting
Parker.
I might have to start making some tough decisions here. Because I have my starting receivers are Godwin, Devontae Adams, and DeAndre Hopkins. But I'm like, man, I'm sitting Devontae Parker every week, and I'm paying for it every week. He's really, really good, and he's doing a great job. And this is what everybody wanted from him, and I think people are finally starting to talk about it. Great job for Devontae, man. I love that guy. And feel good story. Ugh. You all right over there?
Yeah, just stretching.
Jeez. They can hear that, you know.
I know. Next game, we're going to go into the New York Jets. We're defeated by the Cincinnati Bengals.
There it is.
Bengals win 22-6. Bengals improve to 1-11. I think everybody's won a game now.
Everybody has. And they're still in the hunt for number 1 overall pick. I promised my son, I guaranteed my son Andrew that the Bengals would win this game, and boy did they ever come through for me. Tyler Boyd really benefited the most with 5 for 59 and a touchdown. Auden Tate had another solid game, 4 for 66. CJ Uzama, depending on who you ask, 5 for 51. And then, of course, Mixon had 19 carries for 44 yards, just awful efficiencies there at only 2.3 yards per clip. But he did have a touchdown. as well as 4 catches for 26 yards. So he had a good fantasy game for you, but in reality, not good.
But Jets are
in a game script that should have been really good for him.
Jets are really good against the run, though. Horrible against the pass.
Yeah, but for a guy like Joe Mixon, he should be getting more than
the usage.
2.3
Yeah,
yards
usage
per
is
carry.
awful
That's,
for him.
That's really bad. And he got 19 carries, so he actually got the usage in this one, but the efficiency just was not there. On the New York side of the ball, everybody said to start Sam Darnold, except who, John?
You.
This guy right here. Me. Remember, I'm helping you win a championship. And I told everybody I'm not starting Sam Darnold under any circumstances. And thank you, Sam Darnold, for being so bad of a football player that you proved me right against the lowly Cincinnati Bengals with only 239 yards passing, 0 touchdowns.
One interesting thing is what we talked about in the last podcast, which is starting to trend like it did last year. Remember how we were talking about, we know not to start Darnold this week, but remember we said late in the, like fantasy playoffs, the whole Robbie Anderson and Darnold connection. It started this week again.
It did, but I don't know. I think
trust.
last year, and you were one of those guys that won a championship on the back of Sam Darnold. I think that was lightning in a bottle, dude. I don't think you can continue to count on that. But Anderson has turned it around. He's 7 catches for 101 yards. But remember, John, one of the worst secondaries in the league. And Cincinnati can't stop a nosebleed. Against opposing wide receivers. And Le'Veon Bell had a decent game here, too, through the air. 4 catches for 35 yards. Only 10 carries for 32 yards on the ground, though. So not a great overall performance by Bell. I'm starting to get nervous about him, especially given that he's got a great schedule and you're not really seeing it.
I don't think he'll be with him next year, but, disappeared this game, Jamison Crowder.
2 games in a row, right? I mean, he hasn't really been great.
You think he's the most consistent one on the team, and then you see this stat line: 9 targets, 2 receptions, 8 yards.
But they also spread it out to a lot of different receivers. John Braxton Berrios caught a pass. Ty Montgomery caught a pass. Bilal Powell caught 2 passes. Daniel Brown, I don't even know who that is. He caught a pass. So they spread it out quite a bit. And really, Robbie Anderson was the only one to get clicking on the offense, which would indicate the 6 points that they scored and the L that they put up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Fade the Jets in the playoffs, folks.
Speaking of an L, we're going to go in the next game, and I'll tell you what the biggest L of that game is. So the Tennessee Titans beat the Indianapolis Colts 31-17. Titans improved to 7-5. Colts improved to 6-6. And you know what the biggest L is?
The Colts improved to 6-6.
Well, sorry, they dropped to 6-6. Let me change my grammar
What's
on that
the
one.
big L?
Me.
Because Derrick Henry
is come to haunt me.
He is a monster.
I am the biggest L in this.
Did you play against him this week? Because that would have been sweet, sweet love.
No,
right there.
no.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God I didn't, because
he would have been making
Derrick
love
Henry,
to you.
26 carries for 149 yards and a TD. And guess what? He's starting to be used out of the backfield. And 3 catches for 17 yards.
Wore him off last year and said that he would never amount to anything in his career. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what you said.
I mean, he only has 1,140 rushing yards.
And he is shoving it right up your boop.
Yep, he's 3rd in the league. His rush average, 4.9. He's 14th in the league. And in rushing touchdowns, double digits, 11 rushing touchdowns in the season. And he's 3rd. I'm the biggest L for letting Derrick Henry go.
He did. He carried that team. Not a great game for Ryan Tannehill, but he got a couple touchdowns plus 182 yards passing. But really not a huge game for him. And he spread that ball out to a lot of different guys, and not one of them caught more than 3 passes. So really nobody to speak of in the receiving game, which really isn't old. That's not old news with the Titans, no matter who their quarterback is.
So the way this has been changing, do you think A.J. Brown is the number 1 there now?
I think he is, but I don't think it's worth anything.
No. I'm just saying. And
A.J. Brown is immensely talented, as is Corey Davis. They're both unbelievably talented. You put these guys on New England, and I bet $1 million they would have beat Houston this week. But
I'm wondering if Phillip Rivers goes there next year.
We'll see. Isn't that where I put him?
No.
Where did I put him?
I put him with Washington. I can't remember who you put him with.
He ain't going to Washington. Anyway.
Wait and see. On the Indy side, Jacoby Brissett, 25-40, 319 yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. Brissett, not a good game.
He's not that good. Simple as that.
Jonathan Williams owners, if you played him, you were very disappointed.
And Jordan Wilkins, don't start any Indianapolis Colts running back.
And it sounds like, and nothing's been confirmed yet, Marlon Mack could have a chance to play in Week 14.
So it could be the return of the Mac.
It could be the return of the Mack.
I would start him, but not any of these other clowns.
Well, this one kind of shocked me. Zach Pascal
comes back.
Pascal comes back, 10 targets.
It's his triumphant return to relevance.
7 receptions, 109 yards. I don't trust him.
I'll never in my life start that guy. Unless he can put, unless it's week 10 next year and he's having a Michael Thomas season, I might consider it. But until then, nope. Jack Doyle, another resurgence here.
Oh,
6
Doyle
catches
rolls.
for 73 yards.
But
and
he had
touchdown.
11 targets.
Yeah, dude.
11 targets.
Yeah. Well, Ebron was out, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, but the two most boring teams in the league. I don't really feel comfortable starting any player on either of these teams ever. Maybe T.Y. Hilton, but he was out too. So Jack Doyle had the perfect situation.
So next game, I don't think anybody thought was going to happen. The Washington Redskins.
In terms of an upset.
Defeat the Carolina Panthers.
Washington. Yeah, maybe that's why he got fired. You lose to Washington. And, it's kind of hard to come out of that.
Washington improves to 3-9.
Dwayne Haskins is as bad of an NFL quarterback as I've ever seen.
And yet,
in my
you don't
life.
think Phillip Rivers will go there. Carolina Panthers dropped to 5-7.
So bad.
Haskins. The only thing I liked about this game was
he doesn't turn the ball over a ton. I mean, I think one game he had a few, but he didn't have any picks in this game.
So Darius Gucci Geis went off
that's
here.
Awesome, dude.
I played him
to
because
see
people like David Johnson in our league of record.
Peterson had a good game too.
Geis had 10 carries for 129 yards and 2 TDs.
12.9 yards per carry. That's offensive.
But they still gave it to Peterson.
I think that's illegal in some states.
Peterson still had a good game too.
Because they're jerks. This is a jerk organization that's never going to win anything. They give Adrian Peterson more carries than Darius Geis, and Darius Geis just eats his children. Oh, that's probably a bad word. Well, Adrian Peterson probably ate him already, so.
Oh,
anyway.
I don't know how to respond to that. McLovin was non-existent here. 2 catches for 8 yards on 4 targets. The leading receiver for Washington was Harmon, 3 catches for 51 yards.
McLovin, at the end of Superbad, ends up getting the girl, right? That will happen for our version of McLovin, Terry McLaurin. But the girl ain't going to be Dwayne Haskins. It's going to be somebody else.
I think they're going to be a QB change here next year.
Yeah.
On the Carolina side, Kyle Allen, 27-46 for 278 yards, 2 TDs, and 1 interception. He also had 4 attempts for 22 yards and a TD. So not too bad of a day from Allen.
What's the newsworthy thing here, John?
McCaffrey.
Yeah, dude. Finally put up a stinker.
This was his worst game, and he still managed to put up
the Redskins.
Yeah, which of all teams he should have torn up.
Yeah.
He still managed to hang 16 points.
But they weren't good points, John. They were garbage.
And what's funny,
7 catches for 58 yards is not good. 14 carries for 44 yards. That's 3.1 yards per clip. For whatever reason, Washington had the code to Christian McCaffrey in this one.
At the end of the first quarter, he had 51 total yards. I don't know what happened to the rest of the game. They just keyed on him.
But it opened up the floor for DJ Moore, who was typically pretty solid, 6 for 75 and a touch. And Curtis Samuel's back to form with 4 for 65 and a touch as well. So, in terms of playoff talks, John, which you will not be a part of, at least in our league of record, are you comfortable starting the Curtis Samuels of the world moving forward, or even the DJ Moores? Is that are those players that? I think DJ Moore's like a top 5 receiver this year.
DJ Moore's, you have to start him.
But Curtis Samuel, is that a guy you take the risk of throwing in your lineup?
Only, I say based on matchup only. If you have too sweet of a matchup, I think you have to.
Next week they have the Falcons. Just food for thought. Could do worse in the fly. You're looking at me like I've just proposed to you.
No, that's a sweet matchup. That's why. We're going to go into the next game. The Green Bay Packers beat the New York Giants 31-13. This was a snowy game if you didn't see it. And
I saw plenty of snow.
You know who wasn't here in this game?
Who wasn't?
You must have his song to fire up.
What do you mean?
Oh.
What do you mean who wasn't here? Just let me worry about the music,
okay.
pal. Just go.
On the Green Bay side, Aaron Rodgers, 21-33, 243.
No, you only get the music if you perform well. Aaron Jones was trash this week.
243 yards, 4 TDs.
to be clear, you have to earn the music.
Okay.
You got to earn it.
Aaron Jones was irrelevant here. 11 attempts for 18 yards. Once again, yes, let me repeat that. 11 attempts for 18 yards.
How did Williams do?
He had 10 attempts for 41 yards. He was the better back. And Williams also had 4 catches for 26 yards. Jones had 4 catches for 13 yards.
They go with the hot hand, dude. I mean, that's what they do in this team. And in a lot of cases, it's Aaron Jones, but in some cases, it's Williams.
And Devontae Adams is back. 10 targets, 6
baby.
receptions, 64 yards, and 2 TDs. He balled out.
Rodgers is back, too, which I predicted this. But again, it's the New York Giants, John.
So, do you think Lazard now is the number 2 there?
I think so, but I don't think there's a lot of separation between 2, 3, and 4 on this team.
That's
You know
what
I
I'm
mean?
noticing, too.
I don't think there's enough separation for me to want to start him every week, especially in the playoffs. Although they do have the Skins next week, so I mean, you could start him, but for me, it's Jones. It's the triple threat. It's Jones, Rodgers, and Adams are the only guys I would consider starting in the playoffs. But in some cases, I'm not starting Rodgers, and I think you have to start Jones in every case. But Rodgers is not invincible by any means. That's why if you have Rodgers and he's your starting quarterback, see if Andy Dalton's out there, see if Gunter Minshew is out there, because otherwise Rodgers probably will cost you a championship. Just my opinion. He's got some tough matchups.
Speaking of Joneses, that didn't play well as well. Must have been a Jones day. Dr. Jones did not play well here at all.
Yeah.
20 of 37, 240 yards, 1 TD, 3 interceptions. Remember, this Green Bay defense is not good on the ground, but they are good in the air. 3 picks proved it.
Daniel Jones is just a turnover machine, man.
He's too raw.
He's just
too
a
raw.
turnover machine. And he fumbled too. Did you mention that?
No,
so he had 4. Well, one of them, I don't think it was
4
a lost
turnovers.
fumble, but it wasn't
Still-
a
it's
lost
still a
fumble. But yeah,
fumble
it's
cost
still
you.
a fumble, and he does that a lot.
This team, like we said before, in the last show, they need to improve their offensive line.
Yeah.
This is one of Barkley's better
They
games.
had a better game, yeah.
19 attempts for 83 yards, but nothing spectacular.
Yeah.
What
And the Packers aren't great against the run as of late. So.
7 targets, 3 receptions, 32 yards. This is not the Barkley we're used to seeing, but
But it was something. It was signs of life. It was the little heartbeat thing. You saw a bloop, it went up. So that's good. There is a heartbeat there, ladies and gentlemen.
Other than that, there was nothing really from the run game there. Receiving wise, Caden Smith had 6 receptions for 70 yards. My son thought I was talking about him. That's
not him.
Caden Royce. Caden Smith.
Isn't that Will Smith's son?
No.
I don't know. But that isn't Will Smith's son.
No, I can't think of. I know Willow. Isn't it Willow Smith?
Willow. I don't think so.
Something weird like that. But Caden Smith, it was the tight end playing for Evan Ingram. 6 catches for 70 yards. Darius Slayton.
Still good, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't a great game. 6 for 44. But he got you
10
double
points.
digits.
He got you 10 points. 6 catches for 44 yards.
I got to see if anybody's got him in Dynasty. Don't even touch your phone until I can.
I'm not allowed to touch it.
He good, man. I like him. He's got a future, that kid.
Sterling Shepard had 7 targets, 3 receptions for 40 yards,
was a touchdown.
and a TD. This was a game I actually thought he would have more receptions.
But Daniel Jones was too busy giving the ball to the Green Bay Packers.
Yes, and with Tate out, Tate should be coming back this week. I haven't heard anything why he wouldn't, but you never know. So let's move on to the next game. This game was fantastic if you watched it.
You must be talking about Browns and Steelers.
No.
I'm just kidding.
No, this game was actually the San Francisco 49ers lost to the Baltimore Ravens 20-17.
Lost admirably, though.
Ravens win this game. They improved to 10-2. 49ers dropped to 10-2. Ravens, with a Patriots loss, get the number 1 seed. 49ers lose this game. Seattle wins last night. They're now the number 2 seed.
My head's spinning.
Everything's shifted.
This was a prize fight, though. They battled back and forth, and each team scored 7 points in the first quarter. Second quarter, Baltimore put up 10. San Francisco scored 7. In the third quarter, San Francisco scored 3, and then, of course, in the final quarter, Baltimore got a field goal to seal it. Just a really good defensive game. Not a huge game offensively. was curious if I should do this or not today, John, but I have to because overall it is a really good stat line for Lamar Jackson. He is for real. And he didn't mean to make your daughter cry. But the problem with him is he didn't really pass the ball very well in this game. It was pretty ugly. But then he went and got 100 yards on the ground, and he got the touchdown. So he made it happen for you. Lamar Jackson continues his pace of elite numbers in terms of fantasy box score. Little nervous about the 105 yards there, but this was a really good defense that he faced, John. So I think it's only wheels up from here for Lamar Jackson.
I mean, Lamar Jackson...
It's probably the worst game he's going to have this year.
And it was good. It's a stellar defense. Stellar pass D to be that, too. Yeah. So he has 25 passing touchdowns on the year. He is in second for that. He has 5 passing interceptions. So he's limited his turnovers this year. Yeah. And he's actually doing very well with that.
You know who I really like on this team, John?
Who?
Mark Andrews is an elite tight end.
Yes. Let me finish with Lamar Jackson first.
My apologies.
Here is the eye-popping thing with Lamar Jackson, guys. We still got 4 weeks to go. Lamar Jackson has 977 yards rushing.
That's crazy.
A 7-yard average and 7 TDs. So as a quarterback, he has 32 total TDs with 4 games left. He possibly could get over 1,200 rushing yards as a quarterback.
He's the best running quarterback I've seen since Mike Vick, and I think he's better.
He's gonna. If you watch one of the games, there's a move he jukes and he just left the guy's cleats there. I mean, that's how good the juke was.
I can't give him the Kavorka code, but I'll come up with something for this young man because he's special.
He is special, and he showed it.
Mark Andrews is special, too.
Yep, he targeted Mark Andrews 6 times, 3 catches for 50 yards and a TD.
He's an elite tight end. He's a top 5 tight end.
Oh, easily.
He's really, really good. I think him and Lamar Jackson are be a good duo for a few years.
The smart thing here, Lamar Jackson didn't target one person other than Andrews a lot. He spread the ball around evenly.
That's the problem with Mark Andrews, though, because Hayden Hurst just won't go away. Hayden Hurst is the Cameron Brate to O.J. Howard.
Yes. He's always involved somehow.
But to a lesser extent, obviously. Yeah. O.J. just... Maybe, actually, O.J.'s probably the Cameron Brate, to be honest with you. But.
Mark Ingram had 15 attempts for 59 yards. This game was a hot mess if you were watching, though. It was cold. It was raining. It was freezing rain.
Battle.
Very defensive battle from both sides. We'll go to the San Francisco side. Garoppolo didn't really have a great game here. 50 of 21, 165 yards and a TD. The shocker here was Tevin Coleman got shut down. 5 attempts for 6 yards. Only 1 catch for 9 yards, but the guy who started breaking running is kept feeding him, and nobody started him. I guarantee nobody started him unless you're in maybe deep league possibly. But Raheem Mostert, 19 carries for 146 yards and a TD.
So sometimes the yardage can be deceiving because a player can get an 80-yard run, but there's nothing deceptive about this comparison. 19 carries for Raheem Mostert, 5 for Tevin Coleman. That ain't a 50-50 split. That's just domination in terms of carries by Mostert against the guy who's getting paid. Tevin Coleman's getting paid. Raheem Mostert's not to the level that Coleman is. Something's rotten in Denmark there, man. That's scary if you're a Tevin Coleman owner.
And Deebo Samuel still shows that he's a multi-talented weapon. He had 1 carry for 20 yards, and then he also had 2 catches for 41 yards and a TD.
So to put a bow on it, if for whatever insane reason Raheem Mostert is on your waiver wire, and maybe it's not even insane that he is, he might be out there. And in leagues, 10-team leagues, he probably is. You need to at least pick him up because that guy could be that could be the league winner this year. Every year there's somebody that pops up, John, at the end of the season. It could very well be Raheem Mostert. But we're not taping on Monday, so I don't know why I'm telling you guys all these waiver wire selections now that I think
we're so used to it.
Because of Snowmageddon. But if he clears waivers, then go get him. You know who made me a little sad this week, John, in every single league?
George Kittle.
Yes, I literally own George Kittle in every league. He was not very good this weekend. What happened there? Had a tough matchup. So do you think we just move on from this one?
It was a tough matchup, plus they used him a lot to block.
Yeah.
They did. So
this is an outlier, obviously.
I wouldn't read into it too much. It was just one bad game.
Nobody really did well in the passing game, and he, meaning Garoppolo, pretty much had his full complement of weapons with Deebo Samuels out there, Emmanuel Sanders out there, George Kittle out there. But this Baltimore defense, John, has just gotten better and better every week. And I don't know if they've peaked yet, but man, it sure feels like it's close to it because they just keep getting better. And of course, the conditions didn't help either. So I would think Mr. Kittle will be okay. And I think Manny Sanders will be okay too. Because I think they have a pretty good matchup. They have the Saints next week. So from a passing standpoint, it's a pretty good matchup. Raheem Mostert might not repeat against that top 5
I don't
run
think so.
defense,
And there's a chance that Breida could be back this week, so we're going to keep an eye on that.
It does appear that he may be back this week. Yeah. What's next on the docket?
Next on the docket is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 28-11.
All right.
Jacksonville, Foles gets benched in this game. 7 completions for 14 yards. It throws a pick, and in comes Minshew. Minshew is 16 of 27 for 147 yards, a TD, and a interception. And he had 2 carries for 8 yards, but Fournette did not look impressed.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, John, much like some of the other players this weekend, Lenny gave you a decent amount of points because his work in the receiving game. He got targeted 11 times, 9 catches for 53 yards, and of course 14 carries for 38 yards. So he didn't have in PPR. He had a good game. In standard, you're a little bit miffed at his productivity there, but anyway, I think Leonard Fournette's going to be fine. Gunter Minshew, on the other hand, is a guy that could be a fantasy winner, John. I think, and that's why I picked him up. That's why I picked him up and had Rodgers. I don't trust Rodgers. I think you're probably not starting him this weekend against the Chargers, John. So look at my situation. I have Rodgers against Washington. And then the next 2 weeks, Rodgers has really tough matchups. Well, those 2 weeks, I also happen to be looking at Gunter Minshew against Oakland in Week 15 and against Atlanta in Week 16. So that's a situation I think he could be a league winner for you. So if he's on the waiver wire, you got to go get him. Other performances in this game for the Jaguars: 5 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown for D.D. Westbrook. He and DJ Chark continue to jockey for position as the number 1 receiver on the team. Chark only 2 catches for 47 yards. And then Chris Conley rears his ugly head again, 4 catches for 57 yards. Not a great fantasy stat line, but just enough to annoy you as a DJ Chark owner. So who's the number 1 here?
I still think it's Chark. But Westbrook is still kind of like pecking, I guess the word.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of like 1A and 1B. I just think Chark was just phased out more this game. I just think he'll be fine in the long run. Westbrook's having a good season, but not as good as Chark is.
And I think Chark's the better player. But it's a coin flip at this point. But with Minshew out there, I think they both maintain their value. I just don't know if there's huge upside for Westbrook. I think there is huge upside for Chark. I think that's the difference between the two. Westbrook is capped. This is probably the most you're going to see out of Westbrook, but Chark could give you a 30-point game.
What I love is Conley. Conley's still got a safe floor of life.
Yeah, but he's annoying, because you're not starting him, and he's just doing enough if you're a Westbrook owner or a Chark owner to take away from their upside. As far as Fournette, I think he's going to be fine.
The biggest thing with Fournette is just, other than last week, the couple touchdowns, I'd just like to see his touchdown total high because his usage has been great.
For sure.
At least in the pass game, it's been saving his touchdowns.
And it's so late in the season, John, that I don't think they're going to change their strategy with passing, with how they're utilizing him in the passing game. I could see if it was week 6, be a little bit nervous that they're going to go away from that, but they're so deep into the season that I don't think they're going to go away from that. What about Tampa, bro?
Tampa Bay.
Jameis Winston, man.
First game, he didn't throw a pick.
Yeah.
So he didn't look great, though,
he didn't do anything else.
Yes, exactly. 21 of 33 for 268 yards. 0 TDs, 0 interceptions. He did have 6 carries for 20 yards, but no TDs. The no turnovers look good, but no TDs did not help his cause. But Peyton Barber, because of Ronald Jones' pass protection, he had 17 carries for 44 yards and 2 TDs.
Cut them both.
I don't like either one.
Cut them both.
Excuse me.
O.J. Howard's back again.
I know, out of nowhere.
He just pops his head out of the... He's like at Pee-wee's Playhouse, and the little guy pops his head out of out of the window. That's O.J. Howard. But you can't trust him. And then Brashad Perriman, 5 for 87.
I mean,
and then the studs, Godwin and Evans, both disappointed you with 4 for 53 and 4 for 50. Pretty much the same exact stat line. What is it about the Jaguars that shut these guys down so
I
much?
don't know. That I don't understand.
This wasn't a bad matchup. It just didn't happen. But they'll come back to form. I'd rather have them not perform in Week 13 if I've already locked up a playoff spot and have them perform in the playoffs. But not much to speak of on the Tampa side.
Godwin's having a great season. Evans is having a great season. I would not worry about either one, honestly. We'll move on to the next game. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeat the Cleveland Browns 20-13. Steelers improved to 7-5. 7-5 in our playoff bound if they keep this up. And the Browns dropped to 5-7.
All right, what do you think about this one?
It wasn't a great game. Delvin or Calvin Hodges or Calvin and Hobbs.
It's Duck Hodges.
Duck Hodges.
Dippity Duck Hodges.
He was 14-21 for 212 yards, 1 TD, and 1 interception. He did have 2 carries for 9 yards, but nothing great. Best running person in this game was
Benny Snell.
Benny Snell Jr., 16 catches for 63 yards and a TD. James Washington was the good receiver here. 4 catches for 111 yards and a TD.
Yeah, Washington had a great game, and he's proving to be the number one target on that team with Juju Smith-Schuster, a.k.a. Screwju Smith-Schuster, out. And maybe even the number one target with him in there. And we'll apologize if we sounded a little clunky there. We did have some technical difficulties, but we've worked ourselves through that. Again, though, going back to the Steelers, guys, I am not starting anybody on this team. I don't trust this team. I don't care if it's Deputy Duck Hodges. I don't care if it's Dent in the Head Mason Rudolph. I did see
Dent
something.
in the Head Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, you got a big old dent in his head. One thing I did see that was funny was a Cleveland Browns fan. They had their rear windshield wiper, and it was like an arm with a
beating the head with a helmet.
with a Steelers helmet on it. And then Mason Rudolph's picture was here, so every time the windshield wiper went, it hit Mason Rudolph in the head. It was dynamite. I loved it. Jalen Samuels is still a nobody, 7 for 32. But like John said, Benny Snell, 16 for 63 in a touch. Snell has definitely taken over the lead role with James Conner out. And I still have a suspicion, like I said earlier, that Conner's going to be out for the rest of the season. But they keep winning. So that's kind of the only monkey wrench that's getting thrown into things. I think if Pittsburgh had lost the last couple of games, they would probably shut Conner down. But there's a little bit of hope. And they may make the playoffs. I hope they don't, because that would be terrible for football. I'd rather see the Browns in the playoffs, but that's definitely not going to happen. Baker Mayfield, 18 for 32. And I don't think I missed anybody on Pittsburgh, John, to speak of. They did spread the ball out quite a bit, but it was basically the James Washington and Benny Snell show. Baker Mayfield, like I said, 18 for 32, 196, a touchdown and an interception. Another bad game for Baker Mayfield, John. What do you think of the future holds for this young man this season? Do you cut him?
I don't think so.
Why don't you think so?
Well, this game, remember, he missed part of this game due to his hand injury. We don't know the extent of the injury affect him. It's not like he was playing a horrible defense. It's actually a good defense.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Baker Mayfield faced a top 8 defense against quarterbacks. Pittsburgh's in the top 8. So they're really good against opposing quarterbacks. I think they might even actually be in the top 3. But don't quote me on that one. I do not have that information right in front of me. But I'm pretty certain they're top 5. Next week, though, Baker Mayfield goes up against Cincinnati, and then the week after that at Arizona. So he's got two really sweet matchups here. So if you don't have a Lamar Jackson, or you don't have a Pat Mahomes, or you don't have a Deshaun Watson, you could do worse than starting Baker Mayfield, where he has shown that he can perform well against bad teams with good matchups. And he's actually had a tough schedule this year, John. He's faced a lot of top 8 teams against the position. So when he does get those sweet matchups, he really provides you a very good floor and a decent ceiling from a fantasy standpoint. So while this was not a good game for him, he faced a tough defense. Do not start him in Week 16, though, because he plays Baltimore. But I wouldn't cut him by any means.
Nick Chubb, this is probably his worst game of the season, I would say, right here. He had 16 carries for 58 yards, which this is not a typical Nick Chubb game. And he did have 1 catch for 21 yards. But Chubb has been safe pretty much all year for almost putting up 100 every game.
But, John, he's not quite been the same since Kareem Hunt rolled into town.
No, Hunt is eating at him.
And Hunt has performed better in some cases. And Hunt only got 7 carries, John, but he turned that into 46 yards at an excellent 6.6 a clip. And then, of course, through the air, he caught 5 passes for 19 yards and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt's still a playmaker. When I watch him out there, I see the same playmaking ability that he exhibited in Kansas City. And I don't know if he's going to be on Cleveland next year, John, but Kareem Hunt, man, if you got him on your roster in a keeper or a dynasty league, next year he's going to be fantasy gold, I really think. And he could be down the stretch this year, too. He's a good flex start where I think he's providing a really good floor because he's a pass-catching back. And Nick Chubb really has been phased out in that, John. He only got 2 targets here. He did catch one for 21 yards, but they're really almost exclusively using Hunt in the passing game. What do you think of Kareem Hunt?
Kareem Hunt has been gold if you hold on to him or draft him late.
Remember what you told me? You said he would not affect the value of Nick Chubb. Just like Jake told me that when I said that Odell Beckham would not affect the value of Jarvis Landry. If anything, he would make him more valuable. Jake laughed at me at that, too. Both things have really come to fruition here, which I'm very happy for.
Well, speaking of Beckham did not perform this game. He had
Speaking of Jarvis Landry,
three catches for 29 yards. Jarvis Landry did. 6 catches for 76 yards, so another safe floor.
Yeah.
He always puts you at least 12 to 15 up.
Yep. But, I mean, against tough defenses, John, you can't start any Brown not named Chubb, Landry, and I think now Hunt. I think you have to put Hunt in that equation.
No, he's been performing. It's just, if his touches were higher, it'd be better, but let's see. Let's move to
Landry's the only must start every week, I think. He's about as steady as they come.
Yes.
Maybe not as steady as Devontae Parker, but still pretty steady.
No, he's gotten better every game, actually.
Isn't that weird?
I know.
Devontae Parker is the watermark for
Landry used to be a top 5 receiver.
But he's consistent, too. No,
yeah.
He's really good.
Next game, this one got out of hand quick. The LA Rams beat the Arizona Cardinals 34-7.
What happened?
Not much happened for the Cardinals. Rams improved to 7-5. Cardinals eliminated from the playoffs to 3-8-1, but they've shown improvement.
Yeah. Murray's got a bright future.
He does.
But I think we need to start with the LA side of the ball. I told you to start Jared Goff here, people. I said last week this was a game where you need to start Jared Goff, and he showed you why. Because everybody can pretty much beat up on the Arizona Cardinals, even Jared Goff. And we saw a little bit of that old spark in this offense that we've seen last year from the Rams. Todd Gurley had 19 carries for 95 yards. He had only 1 catch, John, but he showed them why he should be getting targeted more in the receiving game because he put 20 yards on that catch. And then, of course, Robert Woods is back to form. Another really solid week here. It's an excellent week, actually. 13 catches for 172 yards. Cooper Kupp, 6 for 65 and a touchdown. And even Tyler Higbee got in on the action with 7 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown. This is what you saw last year, right? Except, I guess you would kind of replace the Higbee total with the Brandon Cooks. Cooks would probably be that guy. But this was a great-looking offense this week. I wouldn't get used to it because you can't play the Cardinals every week, but we play the matchups here. And Gurley had a great game, or a solid game, I guess I'll say. Not a great game, but a solid game. He did get a touchdown on the ground. And, of course, Robert Woods had an excellent game, as did Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff. But can you bank on this every week, I guess is my question to you.
No.
Good answer.
No, definitely not.
They just haven't shown it this year.
Yeah, they're just not popping or clicking. And the other part of it, too, if you're a Brandon Cooks owner, I'd be afraid.
Yeah, he's been feast or famine in the past. Last year, he showed some pretty good consistency. It was actually the year I'm like, you know what? I've always looked at this guy as inconsistent and somebody I don't want to roster. So I'm going to actually go after him this year. And I never got him because he went way too early. But then he went right back to the old-fashioned Brandon Cooks boom or bust guy. And, of course, you got concerns with the concussion issues.
I guess the question is, do you think the fall of the Rams offense was the leaving of Zach Taylor?
No.
I don't think so
I think
either.
Zach Taylor was a bit player in that whole situation. I think he was good because I think he was a QB's coach. So I think he might, maybe you're right. Maybe you're onto something because Goff has definitely declined this year. But I think they just have tough matchups. I think their offensive line has not performed. And Jared Goff needs a good offensive line. They haven't utilized Todd Gurley in the passing game as much.
It's like Cooks just win from a top 10 receiver, I should say.
It's like they're reserving Gurley, but guys, this is the playoff stretch. There's not going to be any reserving Todd Gurley if you don't make the playoffs. And this win definitely helped them get into the hunt. Kyler Murray, one of his worst games that we've seen in a while, against a defense that had not been performing well as of late. 163 yards and an interception. Not what you want to see. You did get a little bit extra with the 4 for 28 on the ground and a touchdown on the ground for Kyler Murray. So he saved your day with that. So it wasn't a terrible performance, but not a great performance by Murray. So that kind of surprised me. And the Drake and DJ show, those guys might be getting the hook because Drake had 13 carries for 31 yards, 2.4 yards a carry. And then David Johnson is just not even... It's just not even a factor, John. He had 2 catches for 9 yards and 4 carries for 15 yards. And, of course, the Drake had 2 for 20 in the air, too. But neither of them had a good game, and it just wasn't a good game script for him either. Larry Fitzgerald, however, had a good game. He just won't die. Larry Fitzgerald, 6 for 56, but that was it as far as receivers. Christian Kirk disappeared in this one, only 3 for 23.
Jalen Ramsey?
I guess. I mean, it would be evident that he was covering Christian Kirk in this one. I did not watch a lot of this game. But yeah, offense just didn't look good for Arizona. I think they learn from this one and move on. And I think there's a bright future for guys like Murray and Drake and Christian Kirk. But I'm a little worried about David Johnson. And you kind of talked about this earlier before we got on the show. Like, what are your concerns with him right now? You said he's not a keeper anymore.
To me, what scares me about David Johnson, I guess it's going to determine the biggest thing with this going to be the offseason to watch is if they keep Drake. Drake does become a free agent. If they re-sign him, he's not a keeper for me anymore. He's not going to get that usage. It shows here now. I don't know if he's still 100% or not, but my guess would be after the weeks of him being not playing and coming back, you think his usage would be higher if he's their focal point. The timeshare is obviously 70-30. It's Drake to David Johnson. So why is he not involved?
Well, next week
why is he in the doghouse?
And next week they have the Steelers, so it ain't going to get any better.
No. So it concerns me to start thinking, unless David Johnson, I don't think he's going anywhere. They give him a big contract. But for a guy they're paying so much money to, why is Drake getting the 70% timeshare here?
They love the Drake. What can I say?
So I don't know. I'm concerned. He really concerns me. So
Higbee, are you buying into the Higbee hype or
matchup only?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and I would probably even avoid that. These tight ends in LA are just so volatile.
Well, Gerald Everett was out this week.
He was. So it was a perfect opportunity for Higbee,
and I didn't start him.
Well, why would you pick a guy up and not start him in the perfect?
To block the person I was playing because he had Noah Fant. Noah Fant did not have a good matchup, and I thought he was going to pick up. No, I lost. Remember?
What good that did you?
I lost to all my leagues this week.
That's a shame. What's that like? I don't know what that feels
like.
I
know what that's like. It's called I actually took a weekend off, and we talked about the curses when we watch games.
Sometimes we're better off going to work. Anyway, what's the next game?
Next game, I will return to work next week. The Chiefs destroy the Raiders.
You're not going to go on IR.
I should go on IR after that loss this week. Chiefs beat the Raiders 40-9. Chiefs improved to 8-4. Raiders dropped to 6-6, but still got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the score, you see a typical Pat Mahomes score. In the real box score, or the real, 40 points, you would expect a lot out of Pat Mahomes. But not so much. Pat Mahomes only 175 yards passing and a touchdown. 3 rushes for 25 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown was basically, they covered everybody really well, did the Raiders, but they forgot about Pat Mahomes, and he just ran it right in. So that was pretty cool, but not his best performance in a matchup that was pretty easy, man. This is an easy matchup for Mahomes, and I was surprised he didn't completely dominate this team. And then if you look at the run game, there wasn't a lot going on there. Darwin Thompson, 11 for 44 with a touchdown. So, like we discussed before the show, Darwin Thompson's a guy we were kind of hoping early in the season, in the offseason, that he would be a guy that would pop. He could be a league winner. You should definitely look to get Darwin Thompson off the waiver wire because LaShawn McCoy only got 5 carries and he only got 10 yards out of him. He did get a touchdown, but he doesn't look good, and neither do a lot of these guys in the backfield. So I think Darwin Thompson John might get a chance here. What say you?
I think the Spencer Ware signing is more for insurance to let Daryl and Damon Williams recover, especially where they have a good chance to go to the playoffs here. I think they just want a healthy team for the playoffs. So signing, let's say Ware's on the team for 2-3 weeks just while the other two heal up, I can actually see that happening. I think Darwin is going to start over a Spencer Ware this week. I think McCoy is only being used as a change of pace back or situational like a screen pass, almost like a game script in a way. He's not their primary back, I think, going forward. I think Thompson will be the primary back this week.
I think the lack of skilled players at the running back position for Kansas City is going to cost them the Super Bowl this year. I think they're going to be looking for a legitimate guy in that backfield next year. You think it's Kareem Hunt?
It could be again. It could be.
How interesting would that be? Kareem Hunt may not want to go back there because he might have felt spurned by them. And like you said, Kenyon Drake will be a free agent as well.
Another reason why I think Darwin Thompson will start this week, they play the Patriots. And I think Reed's going to want some fast movement to keep the Patriots on their toes. And having a shifty back like a Darwin Thompson out there.
Thompson's a good player.
Instead of a McCoy, will actually have a better chance of winning.
I mean, he ran for 4 yards a carry. He got into the end zone. He just didn't get a ton of carries. Only got 11 carries.
The biggest thing I want to see is him getting involved in the pass game because he can catch.
The kid's legit. Through the air, Tyreek Hill 5 for 55, Kelsey 5 for 90. Pretty much what you get as a baseline from those guys every week, but not huge games there. So the 40 points is a little deceiving because Kansas City did not have their best offensive output. On the Oakland side of the ball, Derek Carr just continues to be bad in bad weather. He is not a good bad weather player, nor has he ever been. And, the results the week prior against the Jets were the same in similar weather. Kansas City, it was rough this weekend, and Derek Carr just melted like he always does in situations like that. And that's probably part of why Kansas City's offense wasn't as potent either, John. They weren't great conditions. But Carr had 222 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, which if you're starting Derek Carr in bad weather, John, that's on you. That's a bad decision all day long. You just cannot do that, especially on the road. But Josh Jacobs, 17 carries for 104 yards, John. Pretty encouraging. What isn't encouraging about Josh Jacobs, though?
It's the lack of respect and just typical his usage, and that's because he was not involved in the passing game at all. Not targeted.
And this kid was in college a really good pass
catcher.
I
don't understand the coaches this year.
I don't either.
Where you drafted this kid high to perform. You drafted this kid, he can catch. You already knew this. So how do you go from 3 or 4 targets a game to 0? He had 0 targets.
The only justification would be, well, Jalen Richard's more skilled as a pass catcher. Well, he only got targeted twice.
No, they went to Washington.
And he only caught one of them. Yeah, so it's just like, what is going on here?
So I mean, this is Gruden. I'm not disrespectful of Gruden. Gruden was a great head coach. He's still a great head coach. I mean, I'm not going to knock him for that. But when you make idiotic moves like this by not involving your primary back into the passing game, shame on you.
When you're down the whole game, I will say this, and this is maybe the mad scientist aspect, John, of John Gruden. There's one particular thing about Jacobs that a lot of folks were concerned coming into this season is that he, as a career running back throughout college and high school, under 300 carries in college. You see running backs in the NFL get that in one season.
I was worried about his usage. I really was because of the amount of carries.
Maybe what Gruden is doing is trying not to do too much too soon with Josh Jacobs, but this team still has a crack at the playoffs. They need to start utilizing their best players. Great to see 17 carries, but this kid is a really good pass catcher. Yeah. They're not utilizing him at all.
If you're onto your theory, though, if Jacobs is being eased into this high usage, kid's going to be a monster next year.
He's going to be incredible, yeah. So, Darren Waller, and this is another thing I noticed about the Raiders. When Darren Waller gets heavy usage, they lose. It happens every time. Like, whenever he has a big game, they lose. He had 7 catches for 100 yards. I was literally, John, against Ernie, watching my lead diminish. And I beat him by less than a point. So if Waller had caught one more pass, I would have lost.
You know who got diminished out of this game?
Every receiver known to man.
I think Hunter Renfrow hurts them more than we think.
Hunter Renfrow is out, and
Tyrell Williams, you would think with Renfrow out would be targeted like 87 times. He was targeted 4.
Zay Jones
One catch for 9 yards.
They just didn't. The only guy they heavily targeted was Darren Waller, and it did nothing to help them win the game. So they definitely need to upgrade at receiver. I've heard grumblings that maybe AJ Green could be headed that way. That'd be a great ad for them if he decides he wants to play. But yeah, there's a big hole in the receiver. And you know what? I said, one of my hot takes, John, I don't know if you remember, I said Oakland was going to be a 500 team this year. And when I said that, everybody thought that was ridiculous. But they could very well be on the road to that. And when I said that, they had Antonio Brown before he screwed them over. So I think if this team gets a really good receiver, I think they could be twice as good as what they are now. But until then, you got to kind of fade everybody outside of Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs.
So next game we'll go into the Los Angeles Chargers lose to the Denver Broncos.
Lose like they always do.
Chargers drop the 4-8. Denver improves the 4-8. Both, I would guess, unless a miracle happens, both are eliminated from playoffs.
Dude,
Phillip Rivers,
yeah, man.
I think he's gone. They just talked about this week
gone.
potentially benching him now. So after this game, he didn't look that much better. He was 20 of 29 for 265 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Melvin Gordon starting to get that usage, but imagine what this team would have been if he would actually started from week 1. He had 20 attempts for 99 yards. He also had 2 catches for 11 yards. So Eckler is still pecking, but didn't do much on the ground. 9 catches for 16. Sorry, not 9 catches. 9 attempts for 16 yards. And he had 4 receptions for 51 yards and a TD.
That's what gives him value.
Keenan Allen.
Decent game.
Decent. Not what we're expecting for a breakout.
I'm happy with this from Keenan Allen if I'm an owner of his. 6 for 68 and a touchdown. That gets you right near the 20 mark in PPR. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the big explosion that we've been waiting for, John, isn't going to happen. And I think part of it's because of Eckler and Mike Williams. Mike Williams is getting targets. He got more targets than Keenan Allen. He got 7 targets. He caught 5 of them for 117 yards. Hunter Henry didn't do much in this one, but you're going to have down games from him. That's going to happen. But Mike Williams seems like a pretty steady guy, and that has affected largely Keenan Allen more than anybody else in that offense. And next year you might see him overtake Keenan Allen as the number 1 receiver. He is that talented. I'm starting both of them pretty much on a weekly basis, and I'm still starting Hunter Henry every week in the playoffs. But you can't touch Phil Rivers, man. Like, this guy might be in the Hall of Fame one day. And maybe it's even probably in the Hall of Fame. But the difference is he was born with the Tony Romo gene. That's the problem.
Just can't win it.
He's just a loser. And sometimes that translates to fantasy as well. So nobody in their right mind can start Phillip Rivers. But this wasn't a good matchup, so you probably weren't anyway. So he probably didn't hurt you. But unless he's got a really sweet matchup, you got to stay away from this guy. What do you think of Drew Lock, John? He had 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Only 28 attempts, which isn't really... It's not offensively low in the attempt category. Converted 18 of those.
Honestly, against a Chargers defense that had Derwin James back.
It's excellent.
I'm actually impressed. Locke was actually an early draft pick for the Broncos, but he got hurt in the preseason.
And they seemed very reluctant to put him out there.
He looked good in the preseason. This was his first game back, and they actually started him. I think Locke might have a decent future. I think he just needs to fine-tune some things. But this wasn't I think of all games to start him, I didn't think it was going to be against the Chargers, against a top.
He had a fine game.
Yeah, he had a fine game for a first start.
Yeah. Cortland Sutton came back after his big disappointment the prior week. 4 catches for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns on 5 targets. Jeff Hireman got targeted 5 times, which was weird. He only caught 3 of those for 15, so nothing to see there. Philip Lindsay, John, as we always say, the PPR back that's not a PPR back, had 3 catches for 4 yards and 17 carries for 58 yards. Not a good showing for him. Do you see more from Royce Freeman next week based on this, or do you just chalk it up to the Chargers defense?
I think you just chalk it up to the Chargers defense, especially with Derwin James back. He improves the run defense there. I just think overall, like we said, Chargers defense was good before without Derwin James. Derwin James like added a missile to that defense.
Right,
He
yeah.
just locks in and just stops everything.
And to put a bow on this game, Noah Fant is again non-existent without Allen out there. He needs Allen to be relevant, and without him, he's not. You can only safely start Cortland Sutton on this team, I think. And last week he showed that you couldn't. So it's the playoffs. You got to avoid Denver Broncos, in my opinion.
So the next game is the Patriots lose to the Texans 28-22. Patriots fall to 10-2. Texans improve to 8-4.
And again, play a team with a winning record. They've only beat one team, I think, with a winning record this year, have the Patriots, John, and that's the Buffalo Bills, who granted are a really good team. Everybody else has had a 500 or losing record. So the problem here is we're talking fantasy. So we really don't care whether the Patriots win or lose. I guess you do, but I don't. If I have Tom Brady, I want him to score a lot of points. And he actually had a really good game in this one. He had 326 yards for three touchdowns and an interception. And that interception might have been N'Keal Harry's fault a little bit because he didn't run a route properly. But the problem is this was all garbage time. Like, his points came in garbage time. And granted, they almost came back in this game, but kind of sputtered right toward the end. This was a bad game for Tom Brady, despite what the fantasy box score shows. But he got you there. He got you what you needed to get out of him. The biggest problem for Brady, I think, is his lack of weapons. And Julian Edelman did what Julian Edelman does, fixed 6 for 106 and a touchdown. And James White stepped up when he needed to step up here, 8 for 98 with 2 touchdowns. And that was pretty much it. Sony Michel didn't have a great game, 10 carries for 45 yards. He did from an efficiency standpoint, but just didn't get the workload. And then also on the ground, James White added 14 carries for 79 yards. So Sony got out-carried by James White. That's concerning. So really, is this a situation, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, where Julian Edelman is the only person on the New England flippin' Patriots that is worthy of starting on a week-to-week basis? Is that what I'm drawing to a conclusion on here?
Yeah, James White before this game hasn't been...
He's been up and down.
Up and down. It hasn't been the year like it was before.
I mean, let's face it. Phillip Dorsett's a first-round bust. That's what he's been throughout his career.
Sanu's
a number 3 receiver, and a damn good one. But that's all he is. He's not skilled enough to be a number 2 or a number 1.
I think, this is my theory, I think the Patriots are going to sign somebody.
And they might. I think the problem here isn't that they don't have that player. I think that they do. And I think you know where I'm going with this. N'Keal Harry got 1 target, John. And granted, on that 1 target, he screwed up on his route, and it ended up being an interception.
Yeah, Brady yelled at him.
I get it. But do we really need to just abandon the kid on the island for the rest of the game? Is that how... I think that these guys need to develop N'Keal Harry quickly if they want to go... And we're not even talking fantasy anymore. If they want to win the Super Bowl, they either have to go get Antonio Brown, which may or may not work, or they have to get N'Keal Harry up to speed. And because he flubbed up 1 play to completely avoid him... It's not good for...
He didn't deserve to be punished. I mean, I get
it's not good for Brady either.
I get he ran the wrong route, and I get Brady was upset. You know, I understand that's a mistake a rookie will make. But like you said, I agree with that. He should be rushed, but I don't think they're going to go that route. I think they're going to sign somebody.
Then they're going to lose to good teams.
No, I think Harry's skill set, but I think they're panicking, especially after this game. They know, other than Edelman...
I can tell you Brady's panicking.
You could see it that game.
Oh, yeah.
You could see it. Then they just lost their center. I think, okay, a lot of people are thinking Antonio Brown. I'm not even thinking Antonio Brown's the one they're going to sign.
We don't even know if Brown's going to be able to play. So that's a problem. And the other thing, too, John, is who are you going to sign that's going to be an impact player right off the bat? There's really only one name I can think of outside of Antonio Brown.
Let's see if we're on the same page.
And that's Dez Bryant.
Yep. Exactly what I'm thinking.
And that may or may not happen, but... Dez sometimes can be a knucklehead, so I don't know if they want to disrupt the order of things. I mean, they're still 10-2. We need to remember that.
Yeah, I do know Dez says he wants to play for a contender. He's ready to play. He has shown video that he is catching. He is running routes. He's ready.
And I bet he'd be excellent because Dez Bryant tore his Achilles, yeah, but so did Emmanuel Sanders. And Dez Bryant's a freak. he just needs a chance. Why they haven't given him one, I think, is because it's not his peep, it's just his noggin.
It could be, but I also like if they did sign Des Bryant. I'm saying is because that's who I see as N'Keal Harry. It'd be great.
He's an older N'Keal Harry.
Yes, if you finish this season off with Harry mentoring, you know what I'm saying, Des Bryant being a mentor for N'Keal Harry, you'll see him improve a lot more.
Maybe, but think about this too. N'Keal Harry was the best wide receiver in that class.
Yeah.
He was the most polished. DK Metcalf is a guy that wasn't polished.
And
but Seattle's like, you know what? We need to force feed this kid the ball.
And he's been proven.
And he's been great. He's been a huge success. And I just think New England needs to get out of their old mentality of, got to make him earn it, and just chuck the ball to the kid as many times as you can. And I think you'd be surprised what he gets. Unfortunately, they're not doing that, and they probably won't, which is going to cap Tom Brady's upside. But I don't want to get lost on the fact that he had a great game, you know, when it comes to the fantasy box score, John, but he didn't when you watch the game. It was
no. When I checked the score, I'd watched some of the game, then I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and, you know, the score is literally 21-9. I'm like, ugh.
His QBR was 27.2, John. His passer rating, 85.9. Not good. On the Houston side of the ball, though, Deshaun Watson was having some fun out there. 18 for 25, so they didn't throw the ball a ton, but when they did, they made it happen. 234 yards and 3 touchdowns for Deshaun Watson. And the best part of what do you think the best part of the game was for me, John?
When DeAndre Hopkins threw a touchdown?
It was lovely. So I'm watching the game, and DeAndre gets tossed the ball, and I didn't, for some reason, I wasn't sure if they would count it as a passing touchdown for DeAndre. I was very confused in the moment because it happened really fast. And I might have had a couple of cold ones in me. But I'm like, is that a touchdown? Is that like a passing touchdown? And it didn't register immediately on Sleeper. Not a sponsor, by the way. But then it did, and I was like jumping up and down for joy. So it was great to see DeAndre throw a touchdown to Deshaun Watson. So I wouldn't have got any less points if Deshaun threw it to Hopkins, but it was just so cool.
But I know what you're saying. Watson gets a receiving touchdown.
Yeah, so Watson actually had 4 touchdowns.
You get the double combo. You don't get a stack. But the opposite way, it's weird. So I know what you're saying.
So Watson had 4 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins, he actually had 1 touchdown, and it was a passing touchdown. But he also had 5 catches for 64 yards. They shut him down most of this game, John. DeAndre didn't have his best game here, but he made it happen in the fantasy box score. Will Fuller was non-existent here, and Kenny Stills kind of took his role, 3 for 61 and a touchdown. So that was a little weird. Duke Johnson, John, only had 9 carries for 36 yards, but a decent 4 yards a clip. And he caught 5 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. Duke Johnson is slowly overtaking the lead back role here. He had 9 carries. Hyde had 10, and he got 1.7 yards per carry out of that 10, did Carlos Hyde. You got to believe, I mean, Houston's playoff bound. They've got to see that Duke Johnson's better. They've got to. And hopefully this is, you know, the turning point for that. Other than that, what would you have for takeaways in this one, John?
Takeaway for this is
Darren Fells caught a touchdown too. But
Patriots pass defense actually did a good job, but Watson, with the 234 yards, the limited attempts he had, he made everything count. And the other thing I noticed is that the Patriots are not doing a good job with receiving backs this year. That's where they're getting eaten alive.
They're not. And the other thing, too, is, you know, this team, New England, was down 21-10 in the third quarter, and they did their best to come back. But just throughout the game, Houston was steadily moving down the field and steadily scoring points, and they scored touchdowns and not field goals, and that's why they won the game. It's good to see because they needed that, I think, John, to perform well against a top defense, and New England is without a doubt a top.
This could be a rematch of the AFC Championship. Possibly.
The undeniable Kavorka of Pat Mahomes may disagree with you on that one, but we'll see.
Wait and see.
The AFC is, and I will say this because I always say the AFC is trash, and it is to a large degree, but the NFL is trash to a large degree. There's so many bad teams, but the AFC has seen measurable improvements in terms of the competition level this season, and it's good to see.
Okay, we'll go on to the very last game. So last night's Monday night game, the Seattle.
Did I say NFC or AFC? I meant AFC.
You say AFC.
Did
AFC, I mean.
Okay, well, let's go on to the NFC.
Seattle Seahawks beat the Minnesota Vikings. Seahawks improved to 10-2 and take the number 1 seed away from San Francisco 49ers for now. Vikings dropped to 8-4. On the Seattle side, Russell Wilson was 21 of 31 for 240 yards and 2 TDs and an interception. He also had 4 carries for 13 yards. Chris Carson at the beginning of the game had a couple good runs, but took a nice pop to the head. But he had 23 carries for 102 yards and a TD, and also 1 catch for 7 yards. But Rashad Penny,
baby.
He's being involved. 15 carries for 74 yards.
Once again, more efficient than Chris Carson on the ground, right?
He had a TD, and then he also had 4 catches for 33 yards and a TD. The thing I liked
watching...
watching...
So once again, more efficient through the air than Chris Carson, right? He's a better player. Say it. Because you know it's true.
I never said he wasn't a better player.
He's better than Chris Carson.
Yeah, but they're stuck on Chris Carson for some reason.
For now, man. Like, this kid, how do you deny him? How do you deny this kid? 5 yards a carry almost. 2 touchdowns. Nose for the end zone. He's catching passes. He's making it happen. He won this team this game, John. He won the game for them. Chris Carson did not. Chris Carson just got a crap load of carries.
Carson got that TD at the beginning of the game, too.
He did, yeah. And he got banged up a little bit at the beginning of the game. But I'm telling you, dude, I mean, both these guys excelled in this game, and that's great. But they need to give Rashad Penny the ball more because he's a winner. He really is. And as we alluded to, DK Metcalf, 6 for 75. Where is this kid in 2 years, John? Is he the best receiver in the game in 2 years?
He possibly could be.
This kid is the next Julio Jones. I firmly believe that. He has shown so much this year, and I still don't know if he knows the entire route tree. But he's just getting it done.
Who cares? Throw him the ball.
He's great, man.
What was concerning about this was the Tyler Lockett goose egg.
Again. I mean, it's not a goose.
Last
week wasn't a goose, but it might as well have been.
From what I'm reading, I don't think he's 100%.
I don't think so either.
And that's what scares me.
And he only got 3 targets, which he's not a target monster, but apparently Jacob Hollister
But is next week going to be the week he gets 15 targets? Because he does that every once in a while. He'll get like a 15-target game.
It could be. What do you think of Jacob Hollister? He's starting to come on as a tight end.
For some reason this year, Seattle has done a good job with tight ends being successful, and with no other really tight ends to take anything away there, Hollister, I think, you can play him every week.
Yeah.
Unless the matchup's horrible, but this was a hard matchup, and he actually did well.
The important thing is Wilson trusts him. That's
Yes.
what's important. And Wilson had a solid game too, 240 and 2. So he's pretty steady, but he'll have those meltdown games. But this is an offense that's turned into a really good, really talented offense. The takeaway for me is I think maybe Josh Gordon's not good anymore.
No.
Is that a possibility?
Yes. Very good possibility.
He just doesn't make
plays
plays happen like
the
he
one
used to.
target he got last night, he barely caught it.
Yeah.
That was an amazing catch, but he barely got it.
So I think that book might be coming to an end. What
So,
about Minnesota?
Mr.
Prime Time, Kirk Cousins.
I will never, ever, after hearing the stat I heard last night, ever play Kirk Cousins on Monday night.
He's not good in prime time. And this wasn't terrible. It could have been much worse.
No, but here's an interesting stat for Kirk Cousins owners. On Monday night games, he was 0-7. He just improved that to 0-8. So he is not Mr. Monday night.
He's not good in primetime games. But like I said, numbers-wise, he did okay
Yeah.
for you. He got 276 yards and 2 touchdowns. For quarterbacks, if they're getting you touchdowns, they're going to get you a decent floor. But Kirk Cousins, I would always avoid him in primetime situations because he doesn't perform well in primetime. And that's got to scare the heck out of Minnesota Vikings because if you want to win a Super Bowl, you got to play when everybody's watching you.
Yes.
So that's a little ugly. Dalvin Cook got hurt in this one, John. Injured his shoulder. Before that, he still scored a touchdown, so he still had a good game for you, 9 for 29 and a touch. And then Alexander Madison came in relief. Only 4 carries, though, for 22 yards. The important part is he got 4 catches for 51 yards. So he basically picked right up where Dalvin Cook left off in the receiving game. So they're utilizing him exactly the same as the way they utilized Dalvin Cook. So that's encouraging.
I can tell you that the beneficiary here since Adam Thielen's been out is Kyle Rudolph.
Adam Thielen needs to come back.
No, I agree with that, but Kyle Rudolph.
But yeah, Rudolph's been the old Rudolph since Thielen's been out.
He had 4 catches for 50 yards and a TD last night. So I guarantee he's the guy who doesn't want Thielen to come back. But I'm sorry, Rudolph. We don't own you. You need to go back to the bench. And I need Thielen to come back.
Yes, please. Laquan Treadwell, 1 for 58 and a touchdown. But that's all. I mean, that's probably the only time you're going to see him relevant this year. Stephon Diggs, dude. Not good. You know who should really benefit from Thielen being out? Stephon Diggs. You know who doesn't? Stephon Diggs. So I always think those guys need each other. I'm starting to think that. But I really truly believe Stephon Diggs is an elite player. But right now what's happening, John, there's nobody else to draw attention. So Diggs is drawing the double coverage. And Cousins sees that, and he's like, I'm not good enough to weave it in there. I'm going this way.
They are getting a little tricky with Diggs. That end around they had last night, Diggs just an amazing job.
Yeah, he got 27 yards on that, which was pretty cool. But it's just Cousins isn't confident enough to throw. And you know Cousins has, like, hardcore OCD. I just heard that recently.
Really? Never knew that.
And everything has to be a certain way. I don't know. But unfortunately, he doesn't have that on the field because he's not very precise. But I don't know, dude. It's just he's a weird cat.
Well, hopefully he has so much OCD this week that Adam Thielen comes back and has 20 targets and 20 receptions.
We'll see about that. I hope so. I mean, if you look at the matchup, it's the Lions, so it's pretty sweet. So we really need the Thielen back, especially against the Detroit Lions.
It is a tasty matchup this week.
And it is in Minnesota, so that
which is even better.
This is the week that you start Kirk Cousins, by the way, in case anybody is wondering. And it's a 1:00 game, which makes it even better. So
which is not prime time, so you should be good.
This should be a huge game for Cousins. So sorry about a little clunky week this week, guys. We got Snowmageddon. My boys have concerts on Wednesday night, so we're actually going to tape. It sounds like Thursday for Friday. And that's pretty much it, right, John?
Yeah, this week is just a recap, and then the next episode is start and sits.
It's time for the playoffs, so we're going to try to bust through the start and sits a little bit quicker because I think we want to focus on the really good players and whether or not to start or sit them. It is the playoffs, so this is
you're not going to hear
to make the right.
You're not going to hear us start Gasek, even though I said that last week.
Yep, but I think, but we may tell you guys like that could sneaky win you the week. And we're probably going to talk about other things that could help you win the championship as well. So until then, we'll catch up, and thanks for listening, and hopefully we get through Snowmageddon and get back into our rhythm and back into our groove here, John. A little bit nervous, just saying.
So we'll see you guys soon.
All right, peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for supporting the show. Until next time.